Marketer of the Day, episode 671, the 50-75-100 solution. Relationships, Interdependence, Ownership and Influence with Bryan Falchuk.
Welcome back to the show. We have return guest Bryan Falchuk here, and if you listen to today's episode, you like what you hear, you can find his past appearance at marketeroftheday.com/352. And Bryan is all about you getting your head on straight, on getting your mindset right, being happier, more productive. That way you are not at war with yourself. And Bryan's focus today is on you having better relationships with others. Do you sometimes butt heads, have conflict, miscommunication, drama, fighting back and forth? Well, Bryan wants to help you be happy, get what you want, and get your own thoughts and your own house in order. And you're going to want to sit back and really pay close attention today, because this is not one of those episodes where you can only somewhat listen to it. Really think about this and think deep, and maybe even listen to today's episode once or twice. It's that important, and we'll let Bryan take it away from here.
I'm so thankful to be a part of the Marketer of the Day podcast, and thank you to Robert for having me on. This is such a great chance to share my latest big idea with people. It's an idea that we all need, and it's around how we can make our relationships better. Now, you got to stick with me through the name, because I can lose people because it has numbers, and not everyone likes math, but it's called the 50-75-100 solution. What these numbers are all about is our pieces of the puzzle, or our pieces of the equation in any tough relationship. And actually, not just tough relationships, but really any relationship, because no matter how good it is, we could always make it better. So if you think about it, every relationship is split 50-50, right? There's two sides to the coin. There's two sides to the story. And this isn't just relationships in the sense of like romantic relationships. It's really any human relationship we have. And that's why it's so important in marketing, business, because everything we do is actually about that relationship with someone else. It's how we resonate with them. It's how we click with them. It's how they respond to us and whether we get along or not. And the better we get along, the better we do in business. So this is really important, not just, at home, socially, in your families. It's in every aspect of our life, business included. So here's the deal. We each have half of the equation. This is where the number 50 comes from in the name. But then where does the 75 come in? Well, to get to that, we actually need to look within the 50. Now, if you look at yourself, right, let's take our half of the equation. We're actually split in half again. We've got two halves. Each of those is 25% of the total, right? Because half of us and we're half of the total. So 50% of 50%. Here's the deal. Half of us is how we act, our actions, the things we choose to do, the things we choose to put out there into the world for the world to receive and respond to us. Most people see that as a proactive choice, right? We choose how we act. But the piece where we struggle in seeing it as something we 100% control is the other half of us, and that's our reactions. This is what we do in response to what we're perceiving and receiving from the world around us. So if someone hits you, the way you respond is your reaction. And this is where that choice really starts to come in is, well, I didn't choose for them to hit me. Verbally or physically, I didn't choose for them to say those things to me. I didn't choose for them to be difficult in this negotiation, or ghost me, or blow me off, or yell at me, or whatever it may be. So it's only natural that I would respond this way, right? If you offend me, I'm going to offend you back, or I'm going to get defensive, or I'm going to yell at you. Well, that's actually a choice. And what we actively put out as our actions, and what we respond to people with, whether we're able to turn the other cheek, or if someone gives us something negative to deal with, how do we receive that? Do we feed into it? Or do we maybe show them a bit of compassion and try to respond more positively? So how we're acting and reacting goes out into the world, and guess where it lands? It lands in their half of the equation. Now, the thing about them, it's not us versus them. We're actually the same. They have the same split that we did. They have their actions and their reactions. This is where we start to build to the 75. Look, if you own your half, and I think we can all agree, we own our part of the problem. Now, we may not blame ourselves for the issue at hand, but you don't have to be at fault to be the source of the solution. So you own your half, you've got 50. Now how do we get to 75? Now remember, our actions are what we're putting out there. Our reactions are what we're receiving from the world, processing and responding to. That's going on in them as well. So they're receiving your actions and they're receiving your reactions, and that influences how they respond, how they react, which means you have direct influence over half of the other person. Now, you can't control them. You can't make them respond positively or constructively, but you can influence it. You can give them something better to interact with that may bring them down a notch, that may stop them from attacking, that may make them see you in a different light. And it may take time. It may not be instantaneous, but the more you do it, the more they'll start to learn that you're not what they thought you were, and they should react differently. So you own your 50% and you have influence over half of them, another 25% of the total. 25 plus 50, that gets you to 75. Now you're talking about having sway over 3/4 of this relationship, whether it's a dysfunctional relationship or it's a functional one that could function better. You have control and influence over 3/4 of it. That's a very empowering position to realize you're in, especially in a relationship where you may not have felt empowered to begin with. You may have felt like, these are just the cards I've been dealt. I don't have control over this. There's nothing I can do to make this better. Actually, now you recognize, hang on a second. I'm running the show in half of this, and I'm influencing what's going on in the other half. I'm incredibly powerful here in affecting change. And when you can control and influence 75% of a dynamic, you can very quickly push it to 100% better. That's where these three numbers come from: 50, 75, 100. Now that's all well and good. You understand the dynamic. Hopefully I didn't lose you in the numbers, but I think you get the point. But the question is, how do you do it? And that's where the real learning comes in. There are 3 core principles that come from Buddhism that I think are at the heart of changing our choices in what we react with and changing what we choose to actively put out into the world so that that other half of the equation behaves differently. So we get to that 75% better and round it up to 100. Those 3 things are happiness seeking, interdependence, and impermanence. Now let me try to run through these. They're really simple, basic, and beautiful ideas, but there's so much behind them. This could be hours and hours on this topic alone, but let me seed it for you. Happiness seeking is the idea that each and every one of us just seeks to be happy. Now, what does that mean? It means when you think someone's doing something to you, when someone's hurting you, that's not actually what they're out to do. What they're actually out to do is get some form of happiness that they've defined for themselves. It just happens to come at your expense. Now, it doesn't mean they woke up that morning saying, where's Bryan? I'm going to find him and I want to hurt him. Where is he? My whole purpose today is to seek him out and cause him pain. No. It's, I want better for me today, and Bryan's standing in the way. So they may be confused about their happiness, or they may be choosing a path to it that harms you, but it's not the harming you that they actually seek. Even if it's like they're coming after you to get back at you for something they think you've done to them or to hurt you, there's a reason why they're doing it. It's because they're hurting inside and they want the hurt to stop. And they see you as why they're hurting. And so they think that hurting you back will make them hurt less. You can't have these 2 wrongs make a right kind of situation, so they're confused about it. But that's their actual reason, is their own happiness, not just your pain. We've got all kinds of situations in life where this plays out. Even when people cut you off in traffic, I use this example all the time. It's not like they got on the highway searching for your car to get in front of you. They just want to get home faster or get wherever they're going faster, just like you do. You just happen to stand in their way. So they weren't seeking you out, doing this to you, which means you don't have to feel as wronged and you can react differently. So when you see that they're happiness seeking, not harming you seeking, you're able to control your reaction. Better yet, start to look for ways where you might help them achieve their happiness or step out of the way of it. And they may see you differently and choose to react to you differently and interact with you differently and may support you instead of trying to take you down. That's why happiness seeking is so important. Interdependence is the idea that we all exist in relation to each other. We're not all good or all bad. We're good and bad in different situations with different people. We may be good and bad to the same person in different situations. It's why you fight with people you love. It's why bullies have friends, right? We're all different in different situations, which means if you change the situation or the dynamics of it, you can get a different outcome or a different behavior. That's how you get that 25% of the total, the half of them, to be different by changing what they're interacting with. And impermanence, lastly, is the idea that everything changes. That gives us hope that it's worth doing this. Nothing stays the same always and forever. They just want to be happy. You can interact differently with them so they see that you're not a blocker to it. And they can change because everything changes. When you start to look at it that way, you own your half, you influence half of them, and you soon get to 100% better. Thank you so much for letting me share a bit of this big idea. It's what I'm putting out in my next book. If you found this interesting and you want to learn more and understand better and see situations where you can learn about it and learn how to apply it, go to bryanfalchuk.com and you can see how to find out more about the 50-75-100 solution. That's the name of my next book. You can also go to 50-75-100.com. Thanks so much, and thank you to Robert for having me on.
Thank you very much, Bryan. When you were speaking, it reminded me of that saying that most people are too busy worrying about themselves, and if someone is rude or mad or angry or short with you, it's usually not about you, it's about them. And sometimes we need those reassurances or those new perspectives in order to dig ourselves out of the problems we find ourselves in. Well, you can find Bryan at bryanfalchuk.com, and that is Bryan with a Y. So that is bryanfalchuk.com. Go to that website and you can find the information about his previous book called Do a Day, Live a Better Life Every Day. And his new book is 50-75-100.com. So 50-75-100.com. If you realize that you need help solving this problem, if what he said today resonated with you in any way, even if it just got you a little interested and you said, he brought up some very good points, it will definitely benefit me to grab this book and crack it open every now and then when things get tough. That way I don't have to go it alone. I can have Bryan and his advice and his book to help me out. That is 50-75-100.com. Thanks, Bryan, and everyone else. We will see you there.
Did you leave us a quick review on iTunes yet? It's quick and easy. Just go to marketeroftheday.com/iTunes, click the View in iTunes button, and we would be very grateful.